What if the invisible weight crushing your chest every day isn't a weakness, but an extraordinary gift you've learned to use in reverse? Imagine spending your whole life believing your extreme sensitivity is a flaw, a weakness in your armor, only to discover you possess advanced sensory equipment that most people can't even conceive of. Carl Gustav Jung, one of the greatest explorers of the human mind, didn't view sensitive people as patients who needed fixing. While the psychiatric community of his time tried to silence these souls, classifying their visions and sensations as delusions or boundary issues, Jung chose a radically different path. He decided to listen. He spent decades studying what he called uniquely sensitive minds, people who picked up on the invisible murmurs and hidden tides of others' emotions. What he discovered over these years of in-depth study forever changed the understanding of human consciousness. Jung realized that empaths weren't imagining things and weren't ill. They possessed real neurological and psychological differences, a genuine ability to perceive information through channels that the average human simply could not access. They read energy, deciphered silence, and felt the world's pain as if it were palpable. However, amidst this fascinating discovery, Jung found a silent and devastating tragedy. He noticed that the overwhelming majority of these people, about 95% of them, used these magnificent abilities in ways that destroyed them. Instead of strengthening themselves with this heightened perception, they withered away. The difference between an empath who lives exhausted, drained by every interaction, and an empath who masters their own energy lies in understanding how this gift truly works. The great master of analytical psychology documented the exact mechanisms of this process. He mapped where sensitive people get lost in other storms and developed simple yet transformative practices to correct this course. Your journey to stop being an emotional sponge and become the master of your own perception begins now. How is it possible that an ability designed by nature to protect you has become the main cause of your suffering? The answer lies in Jung's first great discovery, a mistake so common and so invisible that you probably made it today without even realizing you were handing your piece over to strangers. The first piece of this great puzzle is what we can call the perception of the emotional field. Visualize the following everyday scene. You enter a meeting room, a party, or even a relative's house. No harsh words have been spoken. Everyone is smiling, but the air seems heavy. You feel an inexplicable wave of anxiety, a sudden sadness, or a silent anger tightening your throat. Most people experience this and believe that the feeling originated within them. They accumulate this invisible burden, absorb the anguish of the environment, and at the end of the day, they are completely exhausted, wondering what is wrong with their own minds. Jung discovered that the empath's brain functions like a very high-powered radio receiver, tuned to frequencies that no one else hears. This ability doesn't arise from nothing. Most of the time, it is forged in childhood. A child who grows up in an unstable environment, where it is necessary to guess the mood of their parents to avoid conflict, develops a hyper-vigilant nervous system. She learns to read the change in breathing, the tension in the shoulders, and the shift in gaze before the storm breaks. The problem is that this survival mechanism is never switched off. The adult continues to read the entire world as if their safety depended on it. The catastrophic error that drains the life from the empath is the transition from perception to absorption. Jung taught that vision must be clear. You observe the rain falling, but you don't need to drown in it to understand that water is wet. You feel someone's fury, but you don't need to bring that flame into your own chest. The practice that alters this destiny requires constant mental discipline. Every time a strong, seemingly unmotivated emotion arises in your body, you must create a conscious pause and ask a fundamental question. Is this mine? Or did this appear when I entered this place and spoke to this person? The instant you make this separation, the spell is broken. You return to the other what belongs to the other, but the mystery deepens. If you can read the atmosphere of a room, what happens when your mind processes a person's true intentions before they even approach? There is a silent voice within each of us that reads between the lines of creation, a skill that Jung observed with profound fascination, the unconscious recognition of patterns. Imagine meeting someone everyone considers charming, a person who says the right words and has an impeccable smile. Yet within minutes, your stomach churns and an internal alarm sounds violently. The empath detects the hidden psychological profile. Their unconscious mind processes an avalanche of micro-information in a fraction of a second. Small vocal inflections, smiles that don't reach the eyes, rigid movements, almost imperceptible fluctuations in energy, and word choices that betray true intention. The brain assembles a risk profile with an accuracy that seems magical. Surprising stories reveal empaths who canceled last-minute trips or walked away from promising business deals simply because of this dark intuition, only to discover months later that they had escaped major financial or relational disasters. However, it is precisely here that the greatest betrayal of all occurs. Society conditions us to be rational, fair, and tolerant. We are taught that we shouldn't judge a book by its cover, that everyone deserves the benefit of the doubt, and that good people always give a second chance. Then, the empath silences their own inner voice. They smell the lie, but choose to believe the words. They perceive the latent aggression, but try to find a noble justification for the toxic behavior. Jung observed this dynamic and called it the abandonment of inner knowing. It's the perfect recipe for attracting abusive relationships and parasitic friendships. Jung's teaching doesn't require you to confront the liar or create a dramatic scene. Wisdom lies in silent action and absolute trust. When your nervous system signals that a person is unsafe, believe it immediately. Honor your biology and maintain the necessary distance to protect your peace. True compassion begins with respecting your own intuition, without needing logical proof to validate what your soul already knows. Shadow detection is perhaps the most beautiful and dangerous skill an empath can possess. Jung often spoke of the shadow, the hidden repository where the human mind conceals its traumas, its most unconfessable fears, and its unhealed shames. Most people live their entire lives blind to their own shadow and the shadows of others. The empath, on the other hand, sees in the dark. They look at an individual who projects success and confidence, but sense the paralyzing terror that motivates them. They hear a sarcastic joke, but also hear the repressed cry of an old wound. This profound insight allows the empath to understand the pain that motivates the cruelty of others, seeing the fragility behind the arrogance. But to what extent does understanding the pain of others become a justification for our own destruction? Why do we transform a gift of vision into a sentence of sacrifice? In the illusion of healing the universe, the empath transforms this perception into a rescue mission. He becomes the savior of people who didn't ask to be saved. He enters into relationships with cold or destructive partners, believing that his unconditional love will be able to heal the wounded child that lives within the abuser. He justifies abuse and neglect by telling himself that he knows where that pain comes from. This is a completely inverted use of the ability. Shadow perception exists as a compass of discernment, a navigational tool to show you the degree of danger someone represents, not as a divine mandate for you to become the world's personal therapist. How can we love and empathize with someone without offering our own vitality as payment? Is it possible to see another's pain and still choose to walk in the opposite direction? Jung was incisive in stating that understanding why someone is toxic doesn't make that person safe for your life. Understanding the wound doesn't mean you should offer your own blood to heal it. The supreme wisdom of the empath is to achieve what we might call compassionate discernment. It's the ability to look at someone, see all their light and all their darkness, feel deep compassion for the silent battle they face, and yet keep the door of your life firmly locked. You can love someone's humanity and wish them well, while maintaining the necessary distance to avoid being dragged into the abyss that person still refuses to face. Certain minds possess the ability to sense the future, not through mystical prophecies, but through what we can define as trajectory perception. Highly sensitive people are able to extrapolate from present data to foresee the ultimate destiny of a situation. They start a new job and, in the first week, sense the structural collapse that will only occur the following year. They begin a romantic relationship, and despite the initial passion, a silent sadness settles in, warning that the end will be disastrous, long before the first major conflict occurs. It is an unconscious reading of the small cracks in the foundation, the subtle changes in energy, the repetitive patterns that no one else notices, and the invisible deviations that invariably lead to the abyss. Extraordinary accounts show empaths who, seized by sudden anguish, change the entire direction of their lives months before a crisis, avoiding irreparable losses. The central conflict is that the vast majority ignore this warning. The empath sees the precipice but refuses to break, replacing the cold wisdom of their intuition with the illusory warmth of hope. He convinces himself that he's being negative, that people can change suddenly, and that love conquers all. This blind hope is, according to Jungian thought, a profound form of self-abandonment. The individual remains in failed scenarios only to, months or years later, pick up the pieces and murmur in pain, "I knew it from day one." The correct and powerful use of this trajectory perception is immediate action. This ability exists to grant you the gift of time. If you feel the ship is going to sink, you gain months to build a lifeboat, plan your financial exit, or prepare emotionally for the impact. Trusting the trajectory your mind draws is what separates the eternal victim of circumstances from the conscious architect of their own destiny, allowing you to navigate life with an advantage most people would give anything to have. The ultimate exhaustion of an empath comes not only from what they foresee, but from what they resonate with. Energetic resonance and dimensional perception are the finest gears of human sensitivity. The empath's mind acts like a tuning fork. If placed near a guitar string vibrating with despair, it will begin to vibrate at exactly the same frequency. It automatically tunes itself to the other person's emotion. This allows for a human connection of overwhelming depth, the ability to sit beside someone in mourning and share the same weight without saying a word. But when this resonance occurs uncontrollably and continuously in supermarkets, in traffic, and in the workplace, the nervous system malfunctions. The empath loses the ability to know where they end and where the rest of humanity begins. To prevent this dissolution of the self, the ritual of conscious return is imperative. After helping someone, after listening to a profound outpouring, you must intentionally release the thread, whether through breathing, visualizing the energy returning to its owner, or a clear internal affirmation. You need to return the pain of others. Along with this comes the weight of seeing life in a multidimensional way. The empath hears the discourse, but sees the contradiction. They see the various layers of illusion that people use to survive their own lives. The immediate temptation is to confront, point out the truth, and dismantle the other person's defenses. However, trying to force consciousness on someone who is sound asleep only creates conflict and pushes people away. The most mature attitude is to embrace wise silence. You don't need to announce everything you perceive. You are not obligated to fix the inconsistencies of the world. Seeing the truth clearly serves to help you make better choices about who deserves to be by your side, not to make you the implacable judge or the cruel mirror for those who cannot yet bear to face their own image. The true legacy of knowledge that Carl Jung left us about sensitive souls is a letter of emancipation. The tools of your sensitivity, your keen intuition, your ability to read atmospheres and sense the future were forged by biology and the universe for your protection, for the expansion of your own consciousness, and not for you to be the silent foundation where the world's miseries come to rest. When you understand this deeply and absolutely, your attitude towards life changes. You cease to be a fragile and frightened sponge, ready to absorb any negativity floating in the air, and transform into a serene observer, an unwavering presence that feels everything but chooses what to allow in. This is the path to true strength. It is not a power that seeks to control others or demonstrate moral superiority, but the power to finally inhabit your own skin without apologizing. It is the freedom to look at the darkness of others and have the courage to turn your back to protect your own light. If this knowledge has ignited something within you, if it has brought clarity to years of confusion and silent exhaustion, don't let this reflection end here. The next step is to apply this discernment to your reality, honoring your intuition from today onward. If this content resonated with your journey, like the video, leave a comment below sharing your experience, even if you choose to do so completely anonymously, as your experience can liberate someone else. And subscribe to the channel so we can continue to unravel together the depths of the human mind and spirit.